The silver comeback, the Harrisons' final lesson. An upscale restaurant in Pasadena, California. It was Charles and Lorraine Harrison's 50th wedding anniversary. The 72-year-old couple Charles and Lorraine waited excitedly for their 3 children. But what their kids had planned wasn't a celebration. "Mom, Dad, it's time you gave up on living independently." Their oldest son, Jason, 45, slapped a stack of papers on the table. "Nursing home admission forms. You're both getting too old." "Mom, you got lost at the grocery store last week." "Dad, your driving is getting dangerous." Their daughter, Sarah, 42, chimed in. "We've decided to sell the house under power of attorney. We'll use the money to get you into a nice facility." Their youngest, Mark, 38, barely looked up from his phone. "Just sign it. I've got places to be." Tears welled up in Lorraine's eyes. Charles's hands trembled with rage. 50 years of sacrifice for their children, and this was the thanks they got? That night, the Harrisons couldn't sleep. "Honey, have we really become useless old folks?" Charles asked. Lorraine's eyes sparkled. "No, sweetheart. We've just been living quietly. It's time to remind them who we are." They dug into memories from 40 years ago. Charles had been an early Silicon Valley software engineer. Lorraine had been a Wall Street investment analyst. They'd retired early to raise their kids, but their skills hadn't gone anywhere. The next day, the Harrisons seemed to vanish. The kids didn't even worry, they just moved forward with selling the house. Then strange things started happening. Jason's company suddenly got hit with an IRS audit. All those questionable expense reports he'd been filing. They all came to light. Sarah's husband got fired from his job. An anonymous tip had exposed his misconduct. Mark nearly got scammed by a woman he met on a dating app. The cops showed up at the last minute and saved him. 3 weeks later, the 3 siblings gathered for an emergency family meeting. But the location was weird, a luxury penthouse office downtown. When the door opened, they couldn't believe what they saw. Charles stood in front of a huge monitor wearing a sharp suit. Lorraine sat at the conference table in an elegant business dress. "Welcome, kids." Lorraine's voice was cold and firm. Charles clicked the remote. The screen showed a detailed breakdown of everything that had happened over the past 3 weeks. "Jason, that IRS audit, I tipped them off. You didn't steal from us, but tax fraud is still a crime. Sarah, your husband getting fired? Lorraine used her old Wall Street connections to report his misconduct. We hated seeing our daughter with a guy like that. Mark, that scammer you met, we hired her. We wanted to show you how easily you fall for things." Silence. The 3 kids were speechless. Lorraine stood and walked to the window. "We lived quietly for you. But quiet doesn't mean incompetent. We were successful long before you were even born," Charles continued. "You took our sacrifices for granted and trampled on our dignity. Now that you know who we really are, maybe it's time to rethink things." Jason's voice shook. "So, what about the nursing home?" Lorraine smiled. "We already bought tickets for a world cruise. 6 months traveling the globe. Without you." "And the house?" Sarah asked. "Still in our names. That power of attorney paperwork? Fake. Our lawyer drew up those bogus documents. We never signed the real ones." 3 months later, the Harrisons were watching the sunset in Santorini, Greece. Their phones kept buzzing with apologetic messages from their kids. "Honey, are we going to forgive them?" Charles asked. Lorraine sipped her wine. "Of course. But only after we see they've really changed. We just needed to teach them that we deserve a little more respect." Charles took her hand. "Being with you reminds me that age is just a number." The sun was setting, but for the Harrisons, life was just beginning a new chapter. Sometimes the quietest people are the most powerful. The Harrisons taught their children the most important lesson: age isn't weakness, and parents deserve respect. And real revenge isn't violence, it's wisdom.